Hey guys, welcome back to the channel Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. I hope you're all doing well. Now, very serious subject in this video. Is working with epoxy resin killing you? Now, it sounds very serious and I'm not being overly dramatic here, but I just wanted to do a quick video on how to potentially work safely with resin, but also how to eliminate risks you haven't even thought of, because it's quite scary when you look into resin. And I've been doing a lot more resin work over the last couple of months, as those of you that follow the channel know. And the scary thing for me is it's getting colder outside, so I've had to move my workshop from outside to inside. And you can probably see it behind me. That is my workspace at the minute, and it's in a pretty typical living room scenario. So it makes me think about not only the risks of working with resin, but also the risk specifically of VOCs, which is volatile organic compounds, but also the other fumes that are let off. Because let's not forget, resin reacts with a chemical reaction, and the different resins you use will have very different chemicals. And most of us don't go out there, send an email to the specific resin company and say, can I have a look at your safety data sheet, please? And then read through a 16-page document. But there are massive differences between resins if you do spend the time to do that. But most of us know when you work with resin, glove up with some nitrile gloves and always use a respirator. That should make you relatively safe. But what about when you've finished working with your resin? Where do you think those fumes are going? Are they just going to magically disappear when you take off that respirator? Probably not. And that's what's got me thinking, because the last 6 weeks I've been doing almost 1 or 2 projects a day with UV resin and normal resin. And if I'm being honest, I feel like I'm getting a bit of a cold, a bit of lurgy. Now, it sounds, for me, again, it just feels like the oncoming of a cold, but maybe it is a form of epoxy resin poisoning. Now, again, not to be overly dramatic, but I've seen creators who literally, within 10 minutes of using a new epoxy, if they haven't had their respirators on, found themselves in hospital. And that's how serious this is. So I've been thinking about it because I want to find a way to still carry on with the art form, because I love working with resin. I love the creations that we've made. How can I do it safely? And luckily, I think I've found a way to try and eliminate those fumes, those vapors, and hopefully work with it in the safest manner possible. Now, I know a lot of creators out there as well. You watch their videos, they're not wearing a respirator, they're not wearing gloves, they're just splashing it around left and right like it's nothing. Now, don't do that, because your health is more important than a piece of art, because the art is going to be no good to anyone if you find yourself in hospital, or even worse. So I've spoken to my friends over at Resiners, and those of you that know that I've got mixing machines, I've got bubble removal machines and things like that from Resiners. And they've come out with a product that I was really passionate about testing, especially with the fact that I've now moved my workshop indoors, as I know a lot of us are going to have to do as it gets colder, which eliminates those vapors. Up to 99% of those vapors should go with this air purifying machine. Now, it's only available on Kickstarter at the minute, so I am going to put the link in the description, but it is affordable. And if it eliminates that risk of those extra fumes, and I would still always recommend using a respirator, but when you finished your project, it's about those fumes are still there in your living environment. I've got a dog. I don't know what damage those fumes could do to my dog, and I certainly can't put him in a respirator. This is the things that sometimes you've just got to think about. And they've come out with this PurAir machine, and I'm going to test it out in this video. It's officially released from December, and it'll be available for purchase worldwide from December. But they've given me the opportunity to test this out, and there is an opportunity, if you click the link in the description, for the Kickstarter scheme to get quite a significant discount. And for the cost of probably 2 gallons of resin, you could be purifying your air, which is going to make it safer for you, safer for your loved ones, safer for your pets. So that's what this video is about. Sorry, it's a little bit more serious, but I think it needs to be discussed. When we work with chemicals like resin, we need to know the dangers. And I've seen countless videos where creators have, I suppose, not really looked at the risks, gone all in without a mask, without gloves, and found themselves really badly injured, or even worse. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to go straight to the deboxing now. We're going to unbox this PurAir from Resiners, and thank you for sending it me because I'm hoping it's going to give us a solution. We're going to test it out. I'm going to do another resin project. We're going to see how it reacts to the different stages of that resin project and if it's worth buying. But even if it eliminates half of those fumes for me, it's worth buying because I'm halving the risk of anything getting into my lungs that may affect sort of my health. And your health is the most important thing. And I'm going to be interested to just see when I first plug it in, what those levels are at in my living room. Because, as I said, I've been doing lots of projects recently, and I'm pretty confident that some of those fumes and vapours are still trapped in my living space because we haven't got massive ventilation systems in our living rooms or in our houses. And that's what it's important to remember. We need to get something that's going to take those fumes out to make it a safe environment again. So I'm going to go straight to the unboxing now. I hope you're liking the content. If you are, do me a favor, like and subscribe. And again, I'm going to put that Kickstarter link to get yourself one of these PurAirs in the description. So make sure you have a look at it. And Resiners, thank you for thinking of the safety of everyone as well. I think it's so important. And I think they're coming out with some ingenious products for resin creators. If there's anything on their website you like, there is a discount code as well in the description. But let's go straight to the unboxing of this PurAir. So here we go, guys, straight to the unboxing, and it comes in some good packaging. But looking at the size of this box, it's going to be a sizable piece actually. So you may want to think about where you're going to put it. Now the great thing is I believe it's going to be mobile as well, so you can just charge it up with a standard USB charger and move it wherever you want. So I might even use this if it works outdoors in my outdoor workshop when the weather gets better, just to make sure that I'm cleansing and cleaning that air that I'm going to be breathing in. So I'm just going to put you guys on the tripod, try and get you a good picture for the unboxing, and then we're going to unbox. So here we go, the unboxing. Really well packaged actually, and obviously it's made in China I believe, but it still came to me within a couple of days of the email, so pretty quick, and I was happy about that. But I think it's so important that we reduce and minimize those risks as much as we can when we work with resin, so that we can all be here in years to come, you know, and create beautiful art 100%, but do it in the safest way possible. So as a minimum, guys, even if you don't get yourself one of these, please, in every resin project you do, no matter how small, make sure you're wearing a respirator, make sure you're wearing gloves, because you have to be safe, especially if you don't read those safety data sheets on your resins, because you don't know what effect it could have. So here we go. Comes with the user manual, and the thing I really liked about this, before I actually got involved and asked them to sort of send me one to test, is they've got their own scientific tests what they've done, which shows that it takes literally 99.9% of those vapors and VOCs out of the air down to, I think it's 0.03 millimeters. So I really like the fact that they've tested it before they've actually got mass manufactured it and things like that, just to make sure it works. And where it's very different, and we'll go into this in a bit more detail, but with the filter that they use in this, it actually breaks down those compounds as well. It doesn't just store them, so then you've got like a massive thing just storing those compounds, which could actually be more dangerous over time. This actually breaks them down. So this is the unit. As I say, it's quite a unit. It's about 2 foot tall. Again, if you've got any other products from them, like the mixing machine, or the I think it's just the airless, the smaller version rather than the Pro, they all come in this sort of greenish teal colour, which this one does as well. So it's, again, it's
lovely design. It reminds me of like Smeg and those fridges and things like that. So it is a big unit, but look, it's portable. You can move it around wherever you want. So that's one of the good things. Now, when you first get it, it comes sort of pre-assembled, which is great. But what you're going to need to do is there will be a filter in here, which you're going to have to take the packaging off to make sure it works. And you're going to have to connect that sensor. And the great thing with this is it comes with an inbuilt sensor which detects those VOCs and different fumes and compounds as they're happening, and it works on a traffic light system as well, where if your air's good, you'll get a green light. If it's bad, you'll get a red light, and that's really great as a visual aid to see what your air quality is like, you know. And I think the way that I'm going to be using this is just on auto mode, so it can automatically detect those vapors and get rid of them, you know. Before I take that respirator off, I'm going to wait for this to give me the green light. It's almost like crossing the road, you know. But that's how cautious I think we have to be when we work with resin. So I'm just going to detach this base. So I need to unlock it, so I just need to turn it around a little bit, which is very difficult to get on camera, but there we go. It's just a slide across, as you can see, and then the base detaches. This is the filter. This is where all the magic happens, and I believe they last anywhere between 3 to 6 months, but you will have to replace them like any filter to make sure that they're fully useful. But 6 months worth, I'm really happy with that. You know, if I get 6 months worth out of one filter, I'm happy to change it once every 6 months. And the great thing is you even get on the automated display here, it tells you when you need to replace your filter, so you don't even have to think about it. So again, just going to get this out and give you a few more details on it, because this is the magic for me. This is where it all happens. It's in this filter. This is what collects those compounds, those vapors, and then breaks them down. So again, just going into a bit more detail on that HEPA filtration system that purifies the air, because that is, for me, that's the difference between this and some of the other air purifiers I've seen. A lot of other filter systems that I've seen will literally just store those compounds, which for me could be more dangerous than one that breaks them down. So with the pre-filter, it captures large particles such as dust, lint, fibres, hair, pet fur, so it's going to catch a lot of that in my house, but it maximises the filter's life by protecting it. So that's sort of the external part. Now the inside is a H13 true HEPA composite filter. Now I'm not a scientist, but that means that it traps at least 99.97% of airborne particles, up to 0.3 microns, which is tiny. It traps the airborne particles such as dust, smoke particles, allergens such as pollen, pet dander, absorbs, removes smoke, odours, fumes, TVOC substances in the air, which is the most important one for me when you're working with resin. So that is the amazing thing with this filter. I'm going to put it together in a second. I'm not going to go through all these instructions, but I just wanted to show you on that monitor, the air quality level works on a 3-colour system, a bit like a traffic light. If it's green, you know you're good. If it's red, you're in a danger zone. And if it's sort of the yellow, I think it's somewhere in between. But again, I think that's amazing that it does that. So it just gives you that option to be able to just visually look at it and see how good your air quality is. Now, there's lots of different settings with it. You can have it running all the time if you want. You can have it on auto mode, which basically means that it will automatically detect when the air isn't pure and then switch itself on, purify it, switch itself back off when it's green again. So I'm really excited to test this. And again, just so you guys know, with regards to the sensor, what it actually has, you'll probably pay more than the cost of this unit just to get yourself a good VOC sensor. They cost an absolute fortune, and the fact that you've got one inbuilt in the unit is amazing. And as I say, if you look online, the VOC sensors probably cost more than the cost of this unit, especially if you get the introductory offer. So well worth it. Now, to put it together, it's dead straightforward. As you can expect with resiners, every product I've had from them is very straightforward. You've got to take the filter out of the packaging, and look at that. That is where the magic happens, and literally captures all of those vapors, all of those gases, and hopefully gives you clean air. Literally that goes in there like that. And then in the base of the unit, you'll see there's a little cord here. Now that has to be connected to that, and that's, I believe, where the sensor works. So you've got to plug it in like that. Then you simply get the unit, put it back in its base, and slide it into the locked position, he says. There we go. So that is there, and that is now locked. So that is the unit at the minute. And as I say, I'm just trying to get you a better picture, if I can, of the display, because I'm going to be intrigued when I plug this in, just to find out if there's any fumes that are bad for me currently in my living room, because I've done so many projects recently, and it's something that I've really been thinking about. Is I don't have a lot of ventilation in my living room, so are those fumes still lingering? Is that what's making me feel a little bit ill? I don't know. At the minute, they ran out of the UK plugs, so they sent me one with a US plug, but I do have an adapter, so that shouldn't be an issue. So I'm just getting the plug, the standard sort of DC adapter by the looks of it, out of the packaging, and then I'm just going to grab my US to UK adapter. And hopefully it's going to work. You never know. But again, I think this is an amazing product, and the fact that it's specifically designed for resin and resin creators is amazing. You get different air purifiers, which lots of people use, but they're not designed specifically for resin, so they might not get all of those compounds out. And none of the ones that I've seen are as effective as this, where it's 99.97% of those fumes and vapors that it takes out of the air. So I'm a little bit worried about this, if I'm being honest, and actually plugging it in to see what my baseline is in my living room at the minute, because I've done so many projects. But we're going to find out. We're going to do it together, and we're doing it live. So there's no going back. So as you can see, I've just got one of these standard UK to US adapters, plugging it in there, plugging it in my extension lead, and that's just for the purposes of this. I am going to find a permanent home for this near the workstation, but I just wanted to see as a test if there are any bad fumes that are still lingering at the minute in my living room. So we'll find out together. There we go, so it's switched on. I'm going to push the power button, and it takes up to 3 minutes to accurately detect those VOCs. You can see humidity here in my living room in the UK isn't great, 60%, and it's about 19 degrees. So again, you get that thermometer on there as well, which is great. So the filter, as I say, as the filter sort of works more, that's going to go down and tell you when it needs replacing. It's got different modes as well, so you can just turn up the fan mode. That's 1 speed, 2 speed, and full speed, and that's as loud as it gets, which for me it's probably the same as a standard fan, to be honest with you. So it's not too loud, not overly loud, and I think you can hopefully still hear my voice over that, so that's okay. Now I'm just gonna switch that off. Again, you can change it from Fahrenheit to Celsius. I'm going to leave it at Celsius because that's what I'm typically working in the UK. And as I say, initially it's going to take 3 minutes. You can also set it on a timer, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And I think it goes all the way up to 10-hour timer, 9 hours. So that goes up to 9 hours on a timer if you want, where you can just have it running whilst you're doing your projects, which is probably the safest way to do it. But as I say, I'm going to have it on this auto mode, so it's auto going to detect any bad fumes in the air. So I'm just putting it on auto now. And as I say, when you first switch it on, it takes up to 3 minutes to detect the VOCs in your air. At the minute it's showing as green, but I'm just hoping it stays green within that 3 minutes, because at the minute it's not detecting anything, but I think that is just because I've simply just switched the unit on. You're going to see as I am in real time, so I'm sorry you're going to have to wait 3 minutes, but it is what it is. And 3 minutes isn't a long time to wait. But I'm loving the design of this as well. You can see that lovely green, almost leaf-like design, and it's in quite a solid plastic. So again, if I did get any drips of resin on there, I should be able to just wipe it off with some alcohol and wipes. But yeah, there we go. So there is some particles in the air already, and that's going up. And it's not been the full 3 minutes yet, so this is going to be interesting. And I have been opening the windows and doors when I do resin projects, so hopefully that's got some of them out. But you can see there is some particles in the air already. And I want to see if this is going to bring those down. Look, it's going up again to 5.7. But it's only been 2 minutes so far, but it's great to see that sensor working and detecting the different amounts. And I'm just going to see where it settles at. And then we are going to do a project. I'm going to mix up some resin. I'm going to do another project with this next to the sort of my workstation and see how that affects the TVOC levels. But it's just such a great concept. There we go. We've got 0.58, which I think is still in the safe zones. And that is virtually silent on the lowest form. I'm going to move the microphone as close as I can get it. And that is as loud as you get, so it's not very loud on that form. It's still trying to detect, I think, and it's still trying to get an accurate reading. Fluctuating at the minute anywhere between 0.050 and 0.059, I think, which is a pretty safe zone, so I'm happy about that. I've not been killing myself or anything like that. I've not got dangerously high levels of fumes in my living room. But again, I'm just going to leave this 1 more minute just to see what the baseline is when it settles. And then I'm going to move it over to my workstation and see if the fumes are any different over there. I don't think they will be, although I have got one piece that's curing at the minute, but it's almost cured. So I don't think that'll be letting off any excess fumes. But I love the design as well. And I think it's an ingenious invention by resiners. And as I say, I think with the promotion on Kickstarter at the minute, they're going to be dispatched in December, but with the promotion, I think it's around about $130, $140, which again is very affordable when you factor in the cost of these TVOC sensors on their own would be more than that. But I'm happy with that. At least I'm in green at the minute before I start a project. So I'm going to get ready. I'm going to get gloved up. As always, I'm going to get my respirator on as well, because even though this should take the fumes out of the air, I don't want that risk of breathing it in whilst I'm mixing or anything like that. So I'm personally still going to use a respirator with this working alongside. So we'll see what effect, if any, this has when I start mixing up some resin. If it detects those VOCs or fumes. Again, I don't even know if I've got any in the resins that I've got. I've got 4 or 5 different resins that I use, and I'm sure they're all going to be very different levels. But I'm just going to move this over to the workshop along with the camera, and then we're going to mix up some resin and see how this performs. But again, I love that design. And I believe that with the DC adapter, yep, so you do need to have it plugged in. But again, it's something that you can move quite easily and just move it around. Or maybe it just needs to get a charge first before you move it around. So I've just switched it on again. Just having a look. But we'll see. Again, just some basic information for you as well. It's effective for rooms up to 14.4 meters square. If you want if you've got a larger room than that you do your resin work in, you've got 2 options. You can either leave it running for longer, which again should still have the same effect, or you can get 2 units, you know, 1 at each side of the room, and then that will half the amount that each one's got to do. Operating conditions anywhere between -10 and 40 degrees centigrade, so I think that covers most of us, and anywhere up to 85% humidity, so I think that covers the majority of us. But pretty straightforward. It comes with a 12-month warranty as well, so if there are any issues, you just contact them and they sort it out. But that is dead straightforward. and I think it's very simple. But if this reduces the risk to me of working with resin and still allows me to keep creating amazing pieces, then I'm going to have it on all of the time I do my resin work. It's just not worth the risk of not having one of these on. So just going to move it across to the workshop. We'll get some resin mixed up and see how it reacts. Really interesting. The TVOC levels are higher on my workstation than they were 6 feet away. Almost double the amount. And this is obviously where I keep my resin, even though it's in containers and things like that. If you look at that, my TVOC level is quite high compared to what it was. So that is really interesting to me. And what I'm going to try and do is try and work out a way to get you on the stand to watch these readings as I mix some resin. But that's really interesting that less than 6 feet away in my living room, it is more than twice the VOC level. So again, I just find that really interesting, which is where the only thing I've got over here is obviously my resin in containers, and I've got that piece there almost fully cured now. So I wouldn't have thought that would impact it, but the sensor tells me otherwise. So again, this is where you need to be cautious, because you might not think there's any VOCs in the air, but there is. They're invisible, you know. So what I'm going to do for oh, it's still going up, so it's still detecting. Look at that. That peaks at like 0.2 then, and the maximum it peaked at was 0.05 6 feet away. So just shows you, being around resin and working with resin, those compounds are in the air, those vapors, and it seems to be peaking at around about 0.2 over here, which is still a safe zone, don't get me wrong. But I am going to mix up some resin. I have got my debubbling machine as well next to it, so I'm going to mix up some resin. I'm going to keep the sensor, rather than being on the project at the mixing stage, I'm going to keep the camera on this sensor just to see how much it goes up, if it goes up, when I start sort of pouring that resin and mixing the resin. And just to reiterate, now it's settled down, just 6 feet away, the TVOC levels in my workshop area of my living room, which is literally 6 feet from here to my settee, where I normally relax, is 3 to 4 times higher than what it was just 6 feet away. So that for me is really interesting, and that's before I'm mixing anything up. So these pieces that are pretty much already cured are still letting off some kind of fumes with their reactions. Now I have just put it on high mode, the fastest mode, just to see if over in my workshop area it brings them down. And look at that, it's already brought them down pretty much to the same levels as what they were at 6 feet away in less than a minute. So it shows me that it's working, you know, and that's full speed, so it is a little bit louder. I would say it's like having a hairdryer on low is probably the noise volume, but automatically within less than a minute that has reduced that TVOC level by 2/3 back to what it was. And you're always going to have some in the air, but back to what it was 6 feet away. So that's really interesting to see. Now we're going to go on to the next part, which I'm going to be mixing up some resin. So give me a second, I'll get gloved up and respirated up. Here we go, guys. So for those of you that haven't seen this, this is my latest project, which was a rainbow 3D bloom on one side and this crazy sort of metallic, almost atomic atom in the middle reaction that I had with my chameleon alcohol inks and the standard alcohol inks in that center. I'm going to do another one of these just because it uses an awful lot of resin, so it's about 24 ounces of resin this uses, and I think that will give us a good test of this PurAir from Resiners. So I'm going to take this fully out of the mold now. It's not fully cured, it's been about 20 hours, so I'm pretty confident that it'll be okay, but I absolutely love this piece. My favourite piece that I've done to date. So I'm just going to move this to another part of my living room, and it's almost two-sided art, this, so it does use a lot of resin, but again, I'm not bothered about that if I'm going to get another result like this. So I'm going to do another one of these slightly differently this time. The plan is I'm going to be mainly using the blue and the purples on their own, as the colour scheme with the alcohol inks. And then I'm mainly going to be using this metallic white that I used to create that really cool effect, rather than my ocean white. I'm going to do a couple of lines of the ocean white on the outside rings, just because I love that blooming effect. And then the rest of it, I'm going to try and get this metallic effect that I've got here going through the rest of the piece. So we will see. And sorry about the lighting, guys. I'm going to try and improve that for the video. So I'm going to get gloved up, respirated up, and let's get on with it. And let's monitor these TVOC levels. So here we go, guys. I'm just mixing up some resin. I'm using the last of my Jan Chun resin. I'm going to try and mix up about 10 ounces just to get the base of this bloom in. Now I've just slightly short here, so I'm going to have to open a new bottle. Luckily I've got one in stock. I say in stock, in my living room. Because I have found that it's actually quite a useful resin, this Jan Chun from Temu, quite affordable. I'm been testing a few different resins. I quite like this for my blooms. I also like the Apex resins as well from Just For You online. And I've also liked the Let's Resin 1-to-1 resins at the minute as well. So again, just opening up another box of this, a smaller bottle. I think this is the 1 gallon kit. Just to make sure I've got it up to that sort of bottom line level that I've measured out on my silicone mixing cup. So this is the hardener again. And there we go. That is now topped up. But as I say, this mold, it's 12 inches along, so it does use quite a bit of resin. I think I measured it out about 24 ounces in the last video. And now I'm just going to use, I'm thinking that there'll be a little bit more of the actual resin left in the old container, because it seems to be slightly heavier than the hardener. So again, I'm just going to pour this in now, and I've gone just a little bit above. So again, I need to remember that when I'm pouring this in. But this is already the VOC levels on that sensor, and I'm going to move you as soon as I've poured this, have shot up. So they've more than doubled, and it is on auto at the minute. And this is a lot of resin to be mixing at once, guys. And I'm just hoping I get a similar result to last time, because I was really happy with that result. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to be mixing this up, but I'm going to move the camera so you guys can see the TVOC levels. They've already gone up from 0.05 to 0.2 again. And this is on auto mode at the moment. So hopefully we're going to see this in effect. We're going to see those VOC levels increase. Well, hopefully there isn't any, but you never know with resin. And we're going to see hopefully those lights change as well. So that's probably the best picture I can get you guys. And all I'm going to be doing is mixing this resin together at this point. So this is just the mixing of the resin stage. And as that sort of mixes together, I'm guessing that those VOCs will probably still go up a little bit. Although I think Jan Chun say that there is a no VOCs in this. There are certain chemicals. It is a chemical reaction, and therefore there's going to be something that comes off the surface of this resin, I'm sure. And if I just move it slightly closer, I want to see if that has an impact. But again, just mixing it reasonably slowly, because I don't like mixing this resin too fast because it creates a lot of air bubbles with it being a slightly thicker viscosity. It's actually mixing really well, and it seems to be not as thick a viscosity as last time. So I don't know if they might have changed the recipe actually. But you can see those levels. Now I've got it on auto, so that for me is already filtering it. If I switch that off, what I might do is just switch this off for a second and then just switch it back on and see if they've got elevator, because obviously whilst it's running, it's filtering and it's taking those harmful VOCs and different organic particles and compounds out of the air automatically. I'm just going to switch it back on now, and look at that. With it not running just for like 20-30 seconds, that was at 0.4. That is crazy. Almost 8 times the level from not having it running. There you go, it's still rising a little bit, so I'm just going to keep on mixing it and seeing if I can get it to trigger onto sort of red or anything like that. And again, I'm not doing anything else apart from mixing this resin. So it'd be interesting to see actually at what point, if it does with this resin. And if not, I can always try it with another resin as well, because I've got a few different ones at the moment. But actually, it's doing its job, as you saw. So I'm just going to continue mixing this 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm just going to keep this on the VOC levels, but I'm going to fast forward it just so you can see them go up and down, hopefully. And it doesn't turn into a 3-hour video. And that has been a minute, so I'm going to just switch it back on now and see what levels we're at. Wow, that's the highest. It's almost a yellowy green now as well. That light's slightly changed colour. And you heard the fan just go up a little bit then to try and get rid of them. So I'm going to actually leave it off whilst I mix this and then just switch it on at the end. And there we go. That resin for me is pretty much mixed. I've got rid of all the streaks now. I'm just going to switch this back on and see what it senses the levels at being. Wow, we're in red. Look at that. And automatically it goes into that high filtration mode, that high fan mode. But that you saw that then. As soon as I switched it on, it was at 0.1. And that's just through not having, in fact, it was at 1, sorry. And that is, I believe, parts per million milligrams in the air. So automatically it's gone into a higher fan mode and it's filtering it back down. Now it's got under 0.5 again. It's gone to sort of a green mode, and it's amazing how it automatically reacts to it. So I'm going to leave it on auto for a second and just see. Look at that, the TVOC levels just going down. That's what I wanted to see. Now I'm going to switch it off again, deliberately. I'm going to put this resin in 3 separate cups in my bubble removal machine. Switch that on, and then when it comes to the 5-minute point of releasing that air from the bubble removal machine, I'm going to see what levels the TVOCs are there, because I would expect, and this is just me, I'm no scientist, but I'm guessing that's probably going to be one of the highest points. So I'm just going to move you across so you can see me splitting this resin into 3 separate cups, so you can see it's a genuine video, and then we'll put it in the bubble removal machine. There we go. So I've got my 3 cups ready, and you may be asking, why am I splitting it after mixing it in such a big container? And the reason why is, with this being a thicker viscosity resin, the bubbles that I've put in there in mixing will cause it to overflow in the bubble removal machine. If I just put this in there, they're going to massively overflow. And by pouring it into 3 separate cups, which it does fit in my Resiners Airless Pro, it eliminates that sort of possibility. But also I find these silicone cups, it almost seems to react more when you put it in the mixer, and I don't know why, than these clear cups. Again, if you know the reason for that, let me know. It'd be interesting to know. But when I put it in these clear cups, normally if I go to about 5, it'll come up to there and then come back down with the bubbles. But when I put it in silicone, it just seems to bubble a lot more. So I'm just getting these level. Again, probably shouldn't be doing all of this in the mold, but as you can see, I'm limited on space. So I'm just going to get just over 5 ounces of resin in each of these. Being careful when I'm pouring. So I've got 5 in that one. And the interesting thing for this as well is, with the bloom technique, we know we have to wait for the resin to get up to temperature. And how many of us keep our respirator on for 20-30 minutes whilst that's happening, whilst we're still probably sat in our workstation and those VOCs are building up? I think most of us, if we're being honest, take the respirator off so that we can breathe better. But actually, when we do that, we're probably breathing in these VOCs and these particles in the air that we can't even see. And I think this is where this airless, this PurAir is going to make a real difference, hopefully. And I don't mind if I get a little bit more than the 15 ounces that I've mixed, because actually yesterday I could have probably fit a bit more in that mold. And actually, I might have about 5.5 in each of these. And if I've got spare resin, you know me, I always find a way to use it. I'll always have extra molds on hand, and I think I have actually mixed up 18 ounces here. So it just means we'll have a thinner back on this one than the one yesterday. So again, I'm going to put 6 ounces in each of these, just because I've got the resin mixed. And then, as I say, I'm going to switch off this PurAir whilst they go through the bubble removal machine. And it's currently at 0.4 still whilst I'm doing this. But I'm wanting to switch it off just to see what the levels get to without it being on. So I'm going to switch it off. We'll come back in 5 minutes when it's time to release that air from the bubble removal machine. And we'll see what impact, if any, that has on the TVOCs in the air. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll see you in a second. As you can see, guys, that is currently switched off, the PurAir, and this is the Airless Pro from Resin. I need to give it a bit of a wipe actually because I've got some resin on there, and I've got those 3 cups in there, and I'm just going to switch it on for 5 minutes to hopefully debubble and get all of those bubbles out. If you've not used one of these before, they're amazing. And if you want one, there's a discount code, which is CCUK, which will get you some money off as well. And the great thing about the Airless Pro is it works with thicker viscosity resins, thin, medium, even silicone. And as you can see, I can quite comfortably fit 3 cups in there, but I am going to record this, fast forward it, just so you can see those bubbles coming out. There we go, so that's 5 minutes, and you can still see some of those bubbles rising to the top, and you can still see a few bubbles in there. They will all go as soon as I pull the plug out of the back, but I'm also guessing at that point it's going to release that air back into the air, and that's where the VOCs are going to go up quite high, or whatever particles are in the air. So I'm going to pull that out and then try and move you back onto the stands and then switch on the PurAir and see what levels we're at. And get ready to say bye-bye to bubbles. Look at that, crystal clear. All of those 3 cups, which is amazing. So I've just released that. Now I'm putting you back on the stand so we can have a look at the levels straight away. With this being switched off, I want to see what levels they're at once I've done that. So, are we ready? Just switched it on, and it's already red lights. Look at that, 1.1, going into high mode straight away. And did you see the red light, the red glow then, which told me that the VOC levels were higher? But straight away, it's gone into high mode, it's filtering that air, and it's getting it back down to a safe level. Literally within seconds it's done that, which is amazing. So I'm going to leave this running now on auto in the background, just to see if at any other point it gets back up to those dangerous red levels. I don't think it will, with it staying on auto, but it might. So I'm going to move back across to the workstation. We're going to try and put this giant 3D bloom in place as the project, and see where we get from. And you can see, just before I do that, look at that, within 25 seconds, it's already reduced it down to a safe level. So this PurAir is going to change the way that people work with resin. It's going to hopefully genuinely make it so much safer. So really happy with this product. And as I say, the link is in the description for the Kickstarter scheme. And if you put an order in on there, you get quite a significant discount. And I believe they'll all be dispatched in December. So it could be a good early Christmas present for you. Interestingly, guys, I've just taken the resin out of the actual chamber part, and look at this. Gone straight into red mode, as you can see, and look at that. That's the highest I've seen. And it's gone into the fast mode now to hopefully get rid of those VOCs. But look at that. That is genuinely showing what compounds and what particles are going into the air. And all I've done there is open that Airless Pro chamber and taken the resin out, and it's currently, I'm just testing the temperature at the same time of the resin. It's at around about 26 degrees, and I'm wanting it to get to around about 35, 36 before I start this bloom. But look at that. Again, I love the fact that it's color coded as well, so make sure you keep your respirator on if it's in the red at least. And then we're just going to watch, hopefully, get rid of those. And this just shows you, these are those particles that you don't think about, you don't see, and they're just going to linger in the air. So genuinely, guys, think about this, and if you can get yourself one, if you've got the means to do it, then do it, because I think it's going to be really important if you want to work with resin for a long period of time, as I do, and I think every resin artist should have one of these. And just think, normally, if you're doing 3D blooms, at this point, you're probably going to have taken your respirator off because you've taken your resin out and you're waiting for it to get up to temperature, and you don't want to sit there for 20 minutes in a respirator. So again, this is where this, for me, is a really important tool, just to tell you when it's safe to do that. At the minute, it's in the red, as you can see from those lights, so I know it's not safe. And just as a visual aid, that tells me to keep my respirator on. I'm going to speed this up now just so that you guys can see, hopefully, when it gets back to a green mode and how long it takes. And there we go. It seems like the filter, that's taken a good 3 or 4 minutes, I think, to get it fully down back to those green levels. But it's still not green. It's kind of a yellowy colour at the minute. And you can see it's just on double speed rather than triple. When that drops, I think below 0.5 is, I think, when it drops down to 1 and we go silent again. And my temperature of my resin at the minute is up to 30.5 at the minute. So I want it to get to around about 35, 36 before I start. But I'm also conscious that I don't want to get a flash cure. So again, I'm going to keep an eye on that, but then I'm going to move us back over to the project, leave that running in the background, and see if at any point in this project it goes back up to those red levels. So at least we know where the main danger zones are. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, this, because it's something that I've been thinking about. Am I putting myself in danger, you know, working with resin, and how can I minimize those risks? And I think this is one of those ways. So I'm just going to move us back across to the workstation, and let's get this bloom made. There we go, guys. So I'm trying to get prepared so that once these get, as I say, I'm going to wait for 35, 36 today. Just because I did get 2 tiny blobs on that last piece, and if I can do one without, that's what I want to do. And hopefully you can still hear my voice over that fan going off in the background. But I'm going to keep it simple this time, and I'm going to use azure blue and purple, and just kind of do a blue and purple design, going around in sort of different colours, and see what that creates. And then I'm also going to be using, instead of gold in that centerpiece, I'm going to try some silver. And I've got this silver metallic powder. And then I'm still going to do exactly what I did yesterday, but do more of this metallic paste, because that gave an amazing effect when coupled with the alcohol inks. So I'm hoping it will get the same effect this time. I'm going to try and do the actual petals in the bloom slightly smaller as well, to give them the best chance of fully closing in and creating that effect. So hopefully this is going to work, and hopefully we're going to have another stunning result. And with this one, if it works properly, I'm going to put a more simple background on, I think, this time, just to really enhance that bloom, enhance those colours that we've had, and see what we get. So as you can see, we're at 32 degrees at the minute, so probably about another 2 minutes to wait. And the TVOCs in the room, now that filter's been on for a couple of minutes again, it's got them down to 0.60 at the minute, so almost at that green stage where the fan will go virtually silent. And it's just interesting to see at what points we're in more danger when we do this. What points are we more exposed to those fumes, and things like that. So we can make, hopefully, judgment calls and be sensible when we work with resin. And again, do me a favour, guys, if you're still with us, please like and subscribe to the channel. It makes a huge difference. It costs you nothing. Literally, it takes 2 seconds. Click on where it says subscribe and click subscribe. If you want to put notifications on, that's even better, because then you'll get notified of each video if you're liking the content as well. And literally, it takes you 2 seconds. If you're watching this on the TV, which actually I think 60% of my audience do, just log in quickly online on your phone, whatever it takes, just to click subscribe, and then we can grow this channel together. And let me know if you're liking the content as well. And let me know what you think about this PurAir, and if you've ever thought of those sort of toxic chemicals in the air whilst you're breathing them in, like I have. And actually, I think this is a great solution. Again, it's not a sponsored video either. I'm raving about this product because I think it can eliminate so many risks that many resin creators and artists go through without even thinking about it. Right, so the temperature's nearly there, and what I'm going to do, because again I'm interested in how quickly these compounds build up in the air, so I've just switched it off again. And once I've finished pouring and this design, then I'm going to switch it back on and see where we're at. Because again, I don't know if they're mixing these micas and different chemicals, again, might have a different reaction with that resin, which causes it to build up whilst you're actually working on the project. And I know typically, working time wise, when I'm doing one of these designs, I'm spending at least half an hour with it. So in that half an hour, are these VOCs and other compounds and other things building up in the environment around me, and am I breathing them in as soon as I take off that respirator? That's what I want to see. So you can see we're at pretty much 33 degrees on the top. One more minute and I think we'll be there. 30 degrees on the bottom. So always remember there is that difference between the two, and that's why I like to get it even with this. And this seems a little bit more of a medium viscosity when usually this Jiao Chun one's quite thick. So I don't know if they've changed the recipe or what, but I'm going to wait because it's gone more medium rather than thick. I'm actually going to wait until this gets to sort of 36 degrees on that surface. We're at 34 at the moment. Normally, if it's thicker, you're safe to start at anywhere between 31, 33 degrees. But again, this just seems like it's a slightly different consistency to the Jiao Chun resin I used last time, and it's exactly the same, so I don't know why. But it looks more of a medium viscosity. So just to be safe, I want that surface to be at 36. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is get everything ready. I've got some little glass beads again for the center. I quite liked that effect last time. I've just mixed up some black, some gold, and some pink, which is going to go in my center with a tiny bit of resin. And then I'm going to use this silver metallic this time for the center petals and see if I can get that to kind of bloom. And there we go. I've not even used this one yet. But again, I'm not going to need a lot. I don't want it to be overly heavy. And just to give you guys an idea of how little I'm using, less than that. So I want half as much. Probably shouldn't be doing this over the mold I'm about to use. There we go. I think that is about right. I'm going to put that in my cup ready. So that is ready to just have a bit of resin in. And anything spare, as I say, and there will be spare because I'm only going to be piping in those circles and those spirals again. But I'm going to try it and do it in a slightly different design again today. So the second one I'm going to use is this ocean white, and I'm only really wanting this for these outer edges. So again, I don't need a lot. I think one drop of this in this pot will be sufficient, and one drop goes a long way. But what I am going to try this time is I've seen a couple of artists add a couple of drops of Sinker white as well as this one drop of ocean white, and apparently that makes it spread a little bit better. I've not tried it before. And you know what? I've got some Sinker white next to me, so why not? And look at that. That ocean white really is strong pigment. So again, just cleaning off my gloves because there's nothing worse than getting sticky resin on everything because then it will remain sticky. So this is my... Is that my ocean white? Yep, that is my Sinker white. It's just the standard C Deeper from Let's Resin. So I'm just going to add, I don't know, 2 or 3 drops to this when I mix it as well, and see what effect that has. And then the one that I loved was this white metallic, almost pearlescent metallic paste. That came out with some really cool petals. So again, I'm hoping to get more of those. So just giving it all a stir around like you would normally. And you don't realize how concentrated these are, but literally I'm scraping off half my stick because what's left on this half, I think will be more than enough. And you don't want it too heavy because the heavier you make it, the more chances you've got of blobbing and it not working. And again, if you can minimize the risk of blobbing and blooms, you want to do that. And then I've got my alcohol inks ready. I'm going to go with Azure Blue and Purple from Let's Resin and just try and do them in sort of different colors going around here. Right, just checking the temperature again now. We're at 36 on the surface, which makes it 33 on the base. I'm happy with that, so I'm happy to start. So what I'm going to do is just pour the tiniest bit of resin into this cup to create a bit of a paste for those glass beads. And I can feel it warming up actually, so that's good. I think we've timed it about right. And then with this one, this is my ocean white. Again, I don't mind pretty much filling these cups because I'd rather have too much than too little. So that's about 3/4 full, and these are, I think, 2-ounce cups. Just little espresso ones. And again, this is probably the one that I'm going to be using the most of, so I don't mind going a little bit overboard with this one. But I can feel the resin warming up now, so I'm hoping I haven't left it too long. And then this is my silver. And then the next thing I'm going to do, just leave these in these pots, hope they don't flash cure on me. They shouldn't because I've now separated it. So the next thing I'm going to do is just give my mould another quick wipe because I have been working around it and I don't want to risk any bits of mica or anything like that ruining the design if I get a cool effect. And you can see a couple of bits of, that looks like dried resin there. So just using a baby wipe, going around it, making sure it's as clean as it can be and making sure it's in view for you guys. And we're going to switch that PurAir on at the end of this just to see if those compounds have been building up in the air whilst I'm doing this project. So there we go. I think that's every little bit out, hopefully. I can't see any. If I do want to pour the resin, then I can always take it out. So again, just going to pour this in now. First cup, I'm going to go around the edge. And it is starting to thicken up, which is good. And then I'm just going to use my mixing stick to try and scrape out whatever's left in that cup, because otherwise what you'll find is every time, if you don't scrape your cup, you're going to be wasting at least ½ an ounce of resin. And resin's expensive, so we don't want to be doing that. So there is that. And then I'm going to go straight into the center with the second cup. And that should give me enough of a layer, or at least it did yesterday, to create that bloom effect. Almost half filling this mold, and it's only, I think it's just over 1 centimeter high, but I want it to be at least half full so that if I do get any of these pigments slightly sink, then hopefully it will still give me enough time to correct it and stop those blobs. And I've still got a tiny bit of clear resin here, so I don't know what I'm going to do with that just yet, but I'm just going to leave that for now because I've got a few projects on the side that I could quite easily fill it with. So first step here is bubble removal. As you all know, if you've watched my videos, in these molds, they really like to build up on the sides. So all I do every time, just go around that side. It teases any bubbles out. And then any that I can see, I just try and get to the surface in the center so it's not near the edge of my mold, so that I can get them with my torch. Again, a heat gun works for this as well if you've not got a torch. Some people spritz them with alcohol as well. I just prefer using a flame. And I think that's most of those bubbles up to the surface. Happy with that. So I'm just going to use my torch, he says, and go around, hopefully popping any of those bubbles to give us a bubble-free resin, just to start piping that design into. And then what I'm going to do is put my alcohol inks on, and they can be settling whilst I'm mixing my colours. All the time hoping I'm not going to get a flash cure in these colours, because they are still reasonably deep in those pots. There we go, happy with that. Now, as I say, I'm going to go in with my alcohol inks. Now make sure you shake them before you use them. I'm going to be using azure blue and purple for this. In fact, no, before I do that, I'm going to put my center in. So again, I'm just trying to get it reasonably central, like so, and then I can maneuver them around with my stick. And these are just tiny glass beads that I got off Temu. I'm going to use these up, but also if you haven't seen my previous video, it shows you how to use failed projects to do exactly this, which will hopefully save us all some money in the long run. So there we go, that's all of those glass beads out. Just going to make sure that I'm happy that they're all covered in resin and they're reasonably central. I don't want it spreading out too much either, just keeping in that sort of center. And that's where using the glass is really beneficial compared to glitter, because if you try this with glitter, you'll find it goes absolutely everywhere. And I've just spotted another couple of bubbles there, so bring them to the surface. I think that's reasonably central. Let me know in comments if I'm not and if I'm miles out. But again, just going to go over it again. And what I need to do is just turn this up a little bit because the flame is not staying on. There we go. So again, that should be hopefully all of those bubbles gone, including in the center what you've just introduced. Now, as I say, I'm going to put my inks on. Haven't got a particular plan for this apart from I know I want these two colors because they came out really well. Like so. And again, I want them to have a bit of space for when I put in these petals. But I actually don't mind if they mix either because I think they're both stunning colours. And I'm expecting them to mix probably more in that centre than anywhere else. And the great thing about doing this now before you pipe is it gives your alcohol inks time to settle, because if you do it too quickly, then the alcohol inks will still be moving around and they can really affect your bloom process. So just be conscious of that if you're doing blooms. And I'm hoping we get any effect similar to yesterday's, because I think for me that's been my biggest success, that one. And again, I am going to put a few more dots in first. I just wanted to get the baseline of colours in the way that I want them. There we go. Now I'm going to go in a couple more dots of the purple, a couple more dots of the blue. And I'm hoping that this will give us a really cool coloured effect. Let me know in comments what you think of the colour scheme, guys. Let me know if there's a colour scheme you want us to try. And again, just going to go in with a bit more blue now to fill in these gaps. And it will push the other inks out and they will blend a little bit, but I don't mind that. I actually want that to happen, so. Again, don't be too shy with your inks. I like the deep colours that you get, even with the white bloom on top, if you go quite dark with your inks, because don't forget your white, whether it's an ocean white, whether it's pigment paste, it will lighten these colours. So I want it quite deep. Happy with that. And they're my inks. So I've just got sort of almost those 4 petals, and probably turn out to be 8 petals when I'm done, of purple, or maybe I'll leave those as individual purple ones and then have 2 of each of the blue. But that's my inks. Now remember, at this point, you've just put inks on, which are alcohol inks, which are highly flammable. So don't use your torch. And I've just put a bit of dried resin in, which I'm going to get out. I do not want that in my piece, thank you. And what I'm going to do here is to slightly encourage those colours to mix, is just around the edge. I'm going to do a swirl design like this. And literally all I'm doing is swirling around that edge. Should also encourage any bubbles out if there are any. And it's creating this sort of design. And what that'll do is just on the end of my blooms, it'll give me a bit of a wispier effect. So that's that. Again, wiping my stick in between. And then where the colours meet, I'm just going to do exactly the same. Like so. And then I'm going to leave these to settle, mix up my colours, and then we'll be ready to pipe. But don't forget, guys, let me know in comments if you're liking the content, and if you are, please, please, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm hoping this is going to come out half as good as yesterday's. Not greedy, I'll accept half as good. There we go. And that's kind of blended those colours along the edges, if you can see. Just wiping off my tool. Now I'm going to mix up my colours and get those ready. So I'm going to do them in order that we're going to do it in. So I think this one was the metallic one. And again, just going to stir that around in that pot. And you'll see that lovely sheen. And again, there's not a lot used in this, but you want it to be still slightly translucent, which that is. If you can see the end of that stick, I can still see the stick, which is what I want. So again, just mixing it through. Then I'm going to pour it in the piping bag. So this is going straight in. And again, if you're having real problems with blobbing in your blooms, try piping them. It's less pressure going into the bloom, which means that you're barely touching the surface, if you like, when you're going around with that piping bag, and you're just letting the resin drop, which for me works really well. And you still might get the odd blob because it all depends on how you've mixed your resin, as to how heavy it is, as to what temperature you're at, as to what your room temperature's at. There's so many different factors. And I don't think any resin artist out there will get it right every time. So this is that ocean white. The plan is with the ocean white, I literally want probably 2 rings around the outer edge, just because I like the effect of those longer elongated petals. Again, this could all go horribly wrong and we could get a blobby mess, but that is what I'm aiming for, guys. So again, it's almost like milk. Now what I am going to try this time, which I've never tried before, is just adding 2 or 3 drops of this Sea Deeper from Let's Resin. Just because I've seen a few artists say that that helps the bloom spread more. And in these bigger molds, that's what I think it really struggles with, is spreading. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll do. 6 drops in pretty much a full cup is what I've done there. And then there's just the 1 drop of the ocean white. So again, it doesn't really change the colour or the transparency. So I'll be intrigued to see if that works and if it seems to spread more. So again, I'm going to put that straight into my piping bag, which I've just got ready at the side. And again, it's just giving those alcohol inks time to settle as well. But you don't want to give them too long, because that's when your resin cures up and you won't get a bloom. So again, just I suppose it's probably going to be about 3 minutes by the time I've finished mixing these and got them into my piping bags. But let me know how you do your blooms as well. Do you do them differently? Do you get any? And this is this metallic silver, which again, I haven't used. So intrigued, but I just thought it would look better with the blues and the purples than gold. And again, I've not put a lot in, but a little goes a long way when it comes to metallics, if you can see. And just making sure, because especially since I added the resin after the mica, and with it being metallic, I'm just really scraping that underside and the sides to make sure that's mixed. But that is a lovely silver, actually. So hopefully that will give us some silvery petals in the centre, and that is just going to go straight into the piping bag as well. And try and get it all in there. You know, if you've mixed it, you might as well. There's no point leaving it in your cup, because then you're just going to be wasting that resin. And what I do is, if anything that I've got left over, and I will always probably have leftover resin when I do a bloom, I just pour it into a side mould. And I'm quite into my dragons at the minute, so they're getting quite a lot of this spare mixture. I've just done my second. Now, you can at this point, because your inks have settled a little bit, if you see any bubbles, just very gently, you can torch again. Not for any period of time, and I wouldn't recommend this. This is just what I do, guys, so you don't have to copy me. But again, at that point, I feel that the alcohol inks have almost embedded in the resin, so it's safer to do that. So I've got to try and remember where my centre is here, which is there. And I'm going to start off with the silver. And again, I've mixed up all of that, and I'm probably only going to need the tiniest bit, because the silver, I want probably around about 3 or 4 rings. But what I'm going to do this time is I want to cut the nib smaller. I want smaller petals, which will hopefully mean that they'll fully close. And I want to see what effect that's going to have. And I want to see if I can get this metallic white to fully close as well, because that was stunning. It just didn't fully close on all of the petals. So that's that. And then I've got my standard ocean white bloom ready as well. And these are getting quite warm now in the bags. I can feel it in my hand, so that's good. Right, let's get straight on with it. So I'm going to start with the silver, as I say, and I want really thin lines. I don't want thick lines, because I'm going to put them quite close together, hopefully. If my piping allows, then I want them genuinely to be quite thin. And I don't want too much coming out. So I'm just literally snipping off that end, and I can see it's already just coming out, just dripping out, which is what I want. So I'm going to try and start in that center, and literally I want it to be really close to each other, like this. And I just want the silver pretty much around this bit, and I'm going to do one more ring and then that's it. So that is my silver. And then just top tip, just fold up the end of your piping bag, it stops it leaking everywhere. So that is my silver. And then next I'm going to go in with the metallic white. Again, I want roughly the same sort of size. And I'm going to go around this middle section. And again, that's coming straight out as well and just nicely flowing out of my bag, which is what I want. So again, starting here. And again, I want these quite thin and close together. Again, probably going to go about halfway out with this. One more ring. And there we go. Again, just closing that up hopefully on the side so it doesn't leak everywhere. And I'm running out of space. But I've just seen a piece of that silver go on the edge, which I didn't want. So I'm just going to take it out like so. And hopefully that won't stay. And now for the rest, I'm going to go in with this ocean white, because I found that it's the edge of these molds that really blooms the best. And that's where I want the strongest white petals if I can. So again, a little bit thicker this time with the ocean white, because at this time I actually want a decent amount to go down. And actually it probably could be a little bit thicker, but I'm going to go for it. And again, same spirally motion, but by using those two different whites, I'm hoping it's going to create a slightly different effect. Or at least it did yesterday. And again, still keeping it reasonably close to each other. I don't need giant petals, I just want them to close. And the closer they are together, the less work that they have to do that. And I'm coming close to the edge, so I think this will be the final one. And I'm just going to try and sort of get it as close to that edge as I can without touching, if I can. And here, just go back around. There we go. And I think I'm good with that. I think this time I don't want to overdo it. So again, I'm just going to fold that over so I'm not wasting the resin, and I can use it in a separate mold in a second. And now what I'm going to do is put that pattern in. So I can see here, for me, these are naturally almost one petal. So I'm going to put those in. And then I'm going to try and split the difference on these. So I can do that straight away by going straight in to the middle. And again, the same this side. And again, you try not to touch the base of your mold when you do this. That's where some people go wrong. You're just trying to tickle the top of the resin, basically, without touching the base. There we go. And I can almost see that where I've gone now, that's almost creating a natural line for me to go in again. Almost where those colours separate. And I don't mind a little bit of blending. I actually think that's what I want. As you can see, just tickling the surface of the resin. I don't know if anybody's ever called it tickling before, but there we go. A new first, tickle your resin. And there we go. Happy with that. That is, I think, all of my petals. I could go in a little bit more actually. And in fact, yes, I'm gonna. So the one here, that I think just separates those two colours nicely. And any that I think are slightly larger that can withstand an extra petal, I'm going to put it in. Might give us a slightly uneven look, but hey, it's going to be my bloom. I can do what I want. Again with this purple one here. So I am actually halving all of them by the looks of things. Just going to get it to a point where I think they look reasonably equal. And this side as well. And I don't mind different size petals, because if you look in nature, guess what? They're all different sizes. And again, it should promote that closing up. Not even counting them here. I'm just going in with whatever design takes my fancy. And if any of them look like they can be split in two and still create that nice petal effect, I'm splitting them in two. And I think this one is probably the last one I'm going to split. And then what I'm going to try and do, again, just to create a slightly different design, is some of them I'm going to come out with like that, and the rest I'm going to leave and see what difference that. Oh, every other one I think I'm going to go sort of 3 lines in and bring those petals out, and the rest, as I say, I'm going to leave because I don't want them all to have that design. Three petals in, pull it out. 3 petals in, pull it out. And you can see what I'm doing. Just to create, again, a slightly different design. Might work. And it might not. We'll find out. A demold. And just top tip, when you're doing your petals, if you do it like that halfway, you kind of get different shapes of petals when it all pulls in. So that's why I like to do that. And then in the center here, I'm going to give it a very tiny swirl because I've already got those glass beads there. And really, I'm just trying to prevent anything blobbing. But I don't think there's any spaces on here for the first time where I think it is going to blob. Just to differentiate it again a little bit, actually, what I'm going to do is 4 of these petals I'm going to pull all the way through. Again, like that. This one here can come all the way through. This one here can come all the way through. And And again, I'm hoping it just creates a slightly different design for these 4 petals. And then this one here in the middle can come all the way through. But that's it. I'm happy with the design. It's now whether or not it's going to bloom. So I'm just going to torch it again. A, getting rid of those bubbles. B, hopefully encouraging that blooming a little bit. And just try and do it in the direction that it would naturally bloom inwards. And that should still encourage that blooming to happen over the next sort of half an hour or so. What I'll do in about half an hour is, if I still don't think it's blooming enough, is I'll get the heat gun out. But I don't like to use the heat gun. I like it to naturally bloom. So that's that. Now I've got all of this spare resin. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to do another drip dragon, of course, with these 3 different, 2 shades of white and silver. And yesterday this nearly filled it in one go, and in fact I've got some clear spare as well. So I started off this drip reindeer yesterday. So again, I'm going to put 3 of the different colours, just a blob of each in there, and fill that with white, with clear, sorry, and give it a bit of a mix around. Again, just scraping a bit around the sides so we get those different colours going in. So that's that one. This is that nice metallic white. Again, scraping some of that around the sides so it goes all the way around, and a little bit in the centre. Then, just to make sure that I am using all of this clear, I'm going to pour the rest of this clear into this reindeer and just give it a splosh around. Just going to leave a little bit of space on the top so I can put a bit more of this colour on the top, and then hopefully that'll all mix through this little reindeer. Here we go, have a bit more of that. And again, this is going to create a bit of a clean-up afterwards. Always does, but do you know what? It's fun. It's all part of the fun. And then what I'm going to do, I've got this long stick here, is just literally stir this around in that mould. And hopefully that'll sort of blend the colours a little bit. And see what we get. So that is my reindeer mould. Pretty much filled. I'm going to torch the bubble off it as well. And then next, I've got my dragon mould. Now what I am going to do this time with the dragon mould, before I add all these, because there's quite a lot of white and I am conscious of that, I don't like just a white looking dragon, is I've got my alcohol inks out, so I'm going to add some of those to it anyway. So again, I've got the blue and the purple I think will actually go really well with the dragon. So just a couple of drops here and there to create a slightly different effect in the dragon mould. There we go. So that's my blue. And again, just being conscious not to drip anything over this work that I've already done. And this is my purple. Again, just dripping it in there, no particular order, no particular pattern. And see what happens when I add this extra resin. I've also got a red here, so I might as well stick some of that in. I think it'll make more of a purpley effect. And a couple of splashes around this tail. And there we go. They should mix together nicely. And because I've put those inks in, I'm going to go in with the metallic first, the metallic white. And just be conscious when you're piping that will try and come out the back, so be careful. I'm just squeezing it all forward again. Here we go. Now it's coming out lovely. And the way I like to fill these moulds is just, especially when I've put alcohol inks in, is just go around the sides first and let it fall wherever it wants, you know. It's only resin. And sometimes just by, as I say, moving it around like this, around the sides, letting it fall in wherever it wants, and then pouring in the rest of your colours or resin as you get them in drips, creates a really cool effect that you wouldn't have had otherwise. But again, guys, let me know in comments what you think to my drip dragons, the ones that you've seen so far. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Would you buy them, more to the point? Because I'm going to have to start selling some stuff. My house is getting completely filled with resin products, which in one way is good because I love the art form. But in another way, it is kind of taking over my house at the minute. Right, that's all of that. Now I'm going to go in with the rest of the ocean white bloom that I've got left. Again, just because I think whilst the inks are relatively fluid, they'll just add a tint of colour, which is what I want, because I don't like these to look completely white. I think it looks a bit silly without mixing the different sort of colours in. There we go. So that is pretty much all of my white. In fact, I've got a little tiny drop in. I'm just going to add that in there to make sure that that mould is full. There we go. That is that. And now I've got my silver. And if this doesn't fill it, I've still got a tiny bit of clear on the side. So, do you know what? We should have another drip dragon to demold tomorrow. And again, just going around the sides, letting it drizzle down the mould and create its own little colour scheme and shapes and whatever it wants to do, basically. And I think this will be a really cool drip dragon. Got to stop calling them that, but that's what they are essentially. A spare resin thrown in a mould to create a new piece. So that's all of those. Now I've got the tiniest bit of clear in here, so I am going to put that in as well. In fact, I've got quite a bit of clear, so this should fill it, hopefully. There we go, I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is, as I say, just try and mix it around a little bit. So I'm going to use this toothpick and just, especially since I've just filled it up essentially with clear, just mix it around a little bit so I'm getting colours in all parts of the mould, because I don't actually like the look of clear resin on these. And we will see what that comes out like tomorrow as well. But the blooming has started to happen a little bit on the outsides. If I'm being honest, I'm not overly happy with the amount it's blooming. I would have liked to have seen it starting to bloom a little bit more. But again, give it time. You've got to give resin time to work its magic. So I'm going to give it about half an hour or so and then see what it's like. I'm going to give these one more torch. And before I do that, I'm just going to try and wipe off my gloves. Look at how sticky they've got. So again, I'm just going to give these one last torch. Then I'm going to switch this PurAir on and see what levels of VOC we're at now, with the fact it's been switched off for the sort of 15-20 minutes we've been working on this. And I think it will probably be eye-opening. Here we go, and are we ready? This is the main purpose of this project was this. So I'm going to switch it on now. And remember, it's been switched off for that 20 minutes whilst I've been working with the resin. And this is going to be interesting, I think. Wow. Look at that, 5. Straight in the red. And if you don't wear a respirator, remember that is what you are breathing in. You don't even know what the vapors are, but you're breathing them in and you could be causing yourself harm. So resiners, I love this product. I love this PurAir. Guys, if you're a resin artist or use resin in any way, get yourself on this Kickstarter scheme. I'm going to put the link in the description. It will give you a discount as well. So I think you can get these for around about $140 if you get them with the Kickstarter promotion. And then they'll get dispatched in December. And from that point onwards, hopefully this is going to keep you safe. So resiners, thank you for sending it me. I'm going to use it every time I work with resin because I think it's so important. And guys, get yourself one if you can. Now, apart from that, I'm going to come back probably in about 5 or 6 hours and just put it back on this before we demold. And there we go, guys. I just wanted to show you. It took about 3 minutes, but now it's gone from red all the way to green, so you know that the air is safer for you to breathe again. So again, this is just such a great product, you know. I think it's going to make resin work safer for all of us. So thank you, resiners. If you want one, the link to the Kickstarter sort of program is going to be in the description. I'm going to put it straight under as well, so it's easy to find. And then these will get shipped out in December, hopefully making resin art safer for all of us. And then we're going to come back and put it back on this bloom in about 5 minutes. Hey guys, welcome back. And it's been about 5 hours and it's still slightly tacky at the minute, which is where I want it. And interestingly, that PurAir, whilst this has just been sat here curing, it spiked twice, where it went red and then obviously went into action and then took the fumes away again. So it's just worth bearing that in mind. Even whilst your resin's curing, it can be letting off certain fumes which you don't know. So I've been thinking a lot about this back and what I want to do with it. And I decided I want to go with quite a dark base so that hopefully it makes the whites pop, but I also want a bit of sparkle in there. So I'm going to do something slightly different. I've never done this before, but I know you need to get the resin to sort of a tacky stage. And I've got this chameleon powder, which is like a purpley blue. I've also got this golden sort of chameleon powder. And then I've got my cat's eye powder as well. So I'm going to mix some of these up together until I'm happy. And then I'm just going to brush that on. And then in about probably another hour's time, I'm just going to let it continue to cure a bit. But then once I've hopefully brushed this onto all of the back, then I'm just going to go in with a plain black pigment in some resin to give it a bit of a backing. But I'm hoping that we get a really cool effect by mixing these chameleon powders and just brushing them on. So I've got a little pot to the side of me. I've got to be careful not to do this over the mold, but I'm going to take probably about a quarter of a scoop of this. I want this to be the main chameleon colour, which is this purple, and put that in there. And it's a really fine powder. All of these chameleon powders are. So you don't need an awful lot. And a little goes a long way. I'm also going to mix some of that in with the black pigment as well when I mix the resin. I'm going to put a bit of this tiny bit of this goldish one in there as well. So a little bit less. I just want a few sparkles of that coming through. In there. And then literally the tiniest bit of the cat's eye powder. And that is just because it gives you a different sparkle, I think. But it's quite expensive for the amount that you get in the pots. But if you look at that sparkle, it's quite different to the chameleon. So again, I'm going to put the tiniest bit in there, literally that much, to see if it makes any difference when I mix it all together. And that is slightly heavier as well, the cat's eye powders. I think it's because of the magnetic properties, but there we go. So as you can see, that is all in the pot. I'm going to use my little spoon, just mix it round together so I get a reasonably consistent colour and it all gets mixed up. And now the plan is, hopefully I've got enough in here to brush the whole back of it. So again, it's a little bit time consuming, but I think it's going to give it a real wow factor around the edges. So just going to get standard paintbrush. I'm going to give it a quick tug to make sure there's no loose bristles, because the last thing I want is bristles all over this. And then I'm just going to go around quite liberally with this powder and see if I can get it to just stick around the edges, which it is doing lovely. Look at that. And just literally, I want it to cover all of these edges so that when I put the resin in, and again, I'm being quite gentle. I don't want it to mark the resin as such. I just want it to go around the sides like this and hopefully give us that really bright shimmer effect. But I don't know, I've not done it before. I just thought it'd be something different to make this piece a little bit more unique if I can. And again, a little bit of the powder goes a long way, so just keep spreading it round. And almost, I suppose you're almost burnishing it with the brush as well, which gives it that real glitter, that real glow, that sparkle. And especially when this has got the black resin on top, it should really add to this piece. And again, just going all the way around. starting at the edge, and then I am going to work my way in, just in case there is any transparent bits. I think that'll actually give it a real impact if it does have any transparent bits, where you'll see this glitter in the background just coming through. And the sparkle that you get from chameleon powders, I don't think there's anything else that's quite like it. And it adds such a different dimension to your resin. And as you can see, I'm just trying to burnish it all the way around, but still being gentle, because I don't want to affect or mark the resin underneath. So that is pretty much the edges, and I've still got quite a bit, so I should be all right here, I think, just to carry on with that process and burnish the whole thing, hopefully, with this slightly purpley shimmer of the chameleon powder in the background. And as I say, it's my first time doing it this way, but I just think it'll add an extra dimension to this piece in the background. And that's what I'm trying to do, is almost incorporate different techniques. So here, this one's more like the bloom and the chameleon powder. Just seeing what impact we're going to get, you know? And that's what this is all about for me. It's about trying new things, seeing what effects we get, if any. So I'm just going to fast forward this so you guys don't have to spend another 20 minutes watching me painting chameleon powder. And then we'll come back in an hour and put in that black pigment. There we go. I'm happy with that coverage. I think it's pretty much all covered. I think it's a reasonably even texture. Now, normally what you do here is blow off the excess, but I'm not going to, because I actually want it to mix a little bit with the pigment that I pour in. It saves me putting too much extra in the black pigment. So I'm just going to mix up. I'm just having a look here. I think I'm going to need at least 8 ounces. So I'm going to mix up another 8 ounces of resin, add some black pigment, and then we'll be back. And I have realised why earlier on it seemed a different consistency. I've actually ordered the Fast Cure this time from Jan Chun, which is a slightly different consistency. But apparently you can demold it in 4 hours, self-leveling, bubble-free, high gloss. So this is what I'm going to use for this as well. I'm just going to mix up, as I say, I'm going to try 6 ounces first and see if I can get away with it. So here we go, guys. I've mixed up 6 ounces. I've added 10 drops of black pigment paste, well, pigment dye, and about 4 drops of the purple to just give me a really dark, semi-transparent colour. But once it's on there in a layer, I think it will still give me the dark effect that I'm looking for, because don't forget, it's got all of that chameleon powder as well, which will naturally make it dark anyway. So you can see it's still quite transparent, but I'm not worried about it in this piece. Now what I am going to do is just add a tiny bit of chameleon powder to it as well, just actually to mix it in that resin. This is a slightly different one. This is Galaxy from Let's Resin, and again, not much for this because I don't want it to overtake the whole colour. I just want it to have little sparkles just in case there are any transparent bits. And I always love to do this to black, even when I'm using mica powder, because a little bit goes a long way and it just adds a completely different effect to your resin. So again, just mixing that through. This hasn't gone through the debubbling machine either because I've mixed it with colours, so any bubbles shouldn't be visible. And look at that, that looks gorgeous for a back. So, and again, I know there's a bit of the chameleon powder on here still because I haven't blown it or anything like that from when I actually brushed it on. And I'm not fussed about that because if it mixes with this, this back, I think it'll actually create a cool effect. But we'll find out. And I hope I don't ruin this piece by doing this, but you don't know until you try. Just gonna get a baby wipe out to wipe my stick, and then we're going to go ahead and pour. And I'm hoping that I can get away with 6 ounces as a layer, and with this being Fast Cure, that means I can demold it first thing in the morning, because the rest of it wasn't fast cure, even though I did mix in a little bit of fast cure hardness. I don't know what impact that's had on the strength of the resin. But I'm just going to wipe this stick, and as you can see, it's well used. And then I'm going to pour, and I'm hoping there's enough here to just give it a thin layer on the back, which is going to be quite dark. So here we go. Look at that. That's gorgeous as a colour. And as I say, it doesn't need to be a thick layer. I just want it to darken everything ever so slightly. I'm just going around the edges first. And I think I might get away with this with 6 ounces, because it does only need to be a thin layer for this back, and I'm loving that effect already. So what I'm going to do now is just get all of it out, make sure that it's all completely out, and then just mix it around to make sure the whole piece gets covered. Especially focusing on the edges, push it all the way to the edges to make sure that it goes all the way to the edge of your mold. And then again, just spreading it round to make sure that I've got reasonably even coverage. It should self-level anyway, most resins do. And then it almost just gives us that green galactic tinge to the background, which I really like. As I say, just spreading it around to make sure it's reasonably even, helps the resin out when it does self-level. And I think that'll be it. We get to demold this beauty in the morning and see what we're left with. And you see what I mean? By using the slightly transparent pigment, it's not as solid as if I used a mica, but I actually quite like that look. So hopefully, just going to wipe off my stick and then we'll torch these bubbles. We'll get to demold this tomorrow. And again, don't forget guys, get yourself one of these PurAirs. So the link is in the description. Makes it a lot safer for you. You're breathing in a lot less fumes, and hopefully it makes resin work a lot safer for all of us. So again, just going to torch the bubbles, and that'll be this project done until demold. I think I need to put some more gas in this lighter, but there we go. Again, try not to get too close to the edge, but I just love that green shimmer now through that extra chameleon powder, and it should be quite dark on the front because of how I brushed on that other chameleon powder. So we will find out in the morning. And don't forget guys, if you're liking the content, do me a favor, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the morning for demold. Here we go guys, and it's time for demold, and I'm really excited today because I've got, what, 4 pieces to demold, including this large one, so I can't wait to see what this has actually turned out like. But if you've made it all the way to the end as well, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate each and every one of my subscribers. We're nearly at 6,700 now, so really appreciate that, and thank you. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. But without further ado, let's get to demolding these pieces. And also, just on the PurAir, interestingly, 2 or 3 times whilst this has been curing, I've been obviously sat in my living room, which is where my workstation is, and it switched on and went to red 2 or 3 times whilst curing. So it just shows you, you never know what fumes are in the air. And don't forget, the link to get one in the Kickstarter promotion is in description, just down there below. So make sure you have a look at it and check it out. But I'm going to start with the starfish, which I think will be the smallest piece. And all I did with that was the clear resin, dropped some alcohol inks in and some white sinker. And I think for me, that has turned out really well. Again, just seeing if I can get you guys a better picture. When it wants to zoom, there we go. But again, I've got those little tiny spores. Just in all the legs. Again, I love how I just tend to get those spores in the legs as well. Just gives it a whole new dimension, I think. And then in the center, it's just like a storm for me. It's like the sea all crashing in together. So absolutely love that. So that's been a success. So we're on to a good start. Next, I'm going to try this drip reindeer. Now, this was really difficult to demold last time. I'm hoping it gets easier. But there's no easy way, I don't think, to demold these. It's just a case of persistence and trying to get it rolled over. As you can see, they're quite difficult because they're quite small and tight molds. But I'm hoping I've got a good effect on this. I won't know. And the challenge is getting it over the head. Once you're over the head, you're good. But it's getting it to that point. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. So, again, bear with me. I'm going to do this a little bit off screen. I'm just trying to get it over, as I say, that head without damaging the mold. And without damaging those antennas. Antlers, sorry, not antennas. I was getting mixed up with this now. So we're about halfway, as you can see. It is quite a difficult mold to unmold. It's just getting it over this head. Why they made it with such a big round head, I don't know. But you need to have some strength to demold one of these, that's for sure. And we're getting there, slowly but surely. So again, just going to go around this edge and try and just encourage it up a little bit like this. There we go. Now we're getting movement. And then continuing to just roll it out. Trying to pull this at the same time. And I think it is just because it's such an awkward shape. It makes it so difficult to demold. But you've just got to keep persisting. As I can see the face now, so it's getting there. And literally, you're almost turning it inside out on itself, this mold, to manage to demold. If there's an easier way, if anybody's got this reindeer mold, and there is an easier way to demold, please let me know in comments. Because it is the hardest mold to demold. There we go. Bit of brute force. And again, I quite like that because it's got almost that silvery transparent with a little spot there base. And then this is the silver gold head where we dripped it in. And then mainly silver in those antlers and ears. So again, I think he was a success. 2 out of 2. Now I'm going to do this drip dragon. I think this is number 3 now for me of drip dragons. I really like these, and I'm going to do some sort of dragon egg, I think, as well, just for them to have something to almost protect. But again, the ones I've had so far have turned out really well, so I'm just hoping that this one does as well. Wow. He's really cool. Look at that. Again, just those different colours dripped in there. With that white, with some alcohol ink as well. I think he's come out really well. Or she, or it, or whatever. But yeah, I think I love using this dragon mold as a drip mold. You get some really stunning results. So that is the dragon. Really like him as well. And so I might do got to figure out how to do a few smaller dragon eggs, I think, and then I can have these sort of protecting their eggs, because that's what it looks like to me. It looks like they're all lying down, sort of nestling next to something, and guarding something. But yeah, really like that dragon. So 3 out of 3. Now this is the one that I'm really excited for, just to see what, if any, results I've got. Loved the rainbow bloom. Now with this just being a couple more colours, I'm hoping, I'm just going to get these bits off from the bits that I've demolded. Still a tiny bit of flexibility in it, I can feel, but not a lot. I think we're pretty much fully cured now. So again, just going to go around the edge gently. It's a good thickness, what I wanted. Again, used about 24 ounces of resin though, so I'm really hoping that I don't get a blobby mess. I've not had a blobby mess on one this size yet. And I think the day I do, it will just be a very, very sad day. But here we go. So it's demolded nicely. Love the back. It's just got that shimmer and that sparkle from those chameleon powders. Pretty plain, but that's what I wanted. I wanted this one to be more about, hopefully, the front. So we're going to see together. Here we go. Wow. I absolutely love that. Again, it's got that metallic shimmer on those inner petals. This could have been a bit more central, maybe ½ an inch, but I don't mind. And look at that, just that metallic shimmer from that metallic white paste on those center petals where they've sort of spread out and then come back in, and then they've got a better bloom effect on the edges, again using the ocean white paste. And I love that shimmer from the chameleon powder as well, the purple just behind it all. Let me know what you think in comments, guys. But again, I would say that this one has been a huge success. Absolutely love it. And it's just using those two different pastes, I think, to give you that two different effects on those petals makes such a difference. So that metallic white on the inner petals, and then there's that white bloom on the outer petals. So there we have it, another large success. Do me a favour, if you've liked the content, like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next one. And don't forget that link to the PurAir is just in the description.